Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lori. I am jumping on really quick impromptu because I wanted to share a message about being in the quantum realm or being in the quantum field. So as we start shifting into higher frequencies and actually anchoring those higher frequencies into our physical body, there's a couple things that are starting to happen to us. Well, there's a lot of things that are starting to happen to us, but one of the things that's happening on a microscopic level is that the light codes that you are, which is the light being that you are, that's in a higher consciousness dropped into human form, and you had light codes with you, right? There were higher frequency light codes, multidimensional aspects of you that you brought in with your consciousness. And when you brought them in, they literally entered into the strands that we call DNA, okay? And these strands of DNA hold these light codes. They are designed to be activated and to turn on as we anchor in more light. The more light we hold in our physical form, naturally it starts to activate those light codes that are holding the higher consciousness, the abilities to be in the multidimensional realm, which is our birthright, obviously, because it is us. These higher dimensional light codes stored within the strands that we call DNA are us, right? And so they naturally are starting to turn on, okay? Nothing we need to do. It just naturally starts to happen. And what you'll start to notice is that you begin to separate yourself from the third dimensional matrix. Separate yourself from the fourth dimensional matrix, separate yourself from the fifth dimensional matrix. You start to recognize that there's all these matrices, almost like grids, right? And you start to feel yourself almost like you're floating or separated from the matrices that hold the realities together. And so the matrix that holds the third dimensional realm together are all the programs, the paradigms, the consciousnesses, everything that resides on that grid, in that grid, with that grid. When you start to expand, when you start to anchor more light, which you're all doing, when you start to activate those higher dimensional light codes in the DNA, which are naturally happening, you start to separate from this matrix. The paradigms you separate from, the programming you start separating from. You're in it, meaning that you are the sovereign being kind of floating around in this consciousness, in this third dimensional field, but you're separate from it. Like you're just floating, right? You're just kind of floating. And what happens is you notice that paradigms like healing past lives, karmic contracts, ancestral healing, things like that exist in the third dimensional matrix don't exist when you are floating in the quantum realm. You're not attached to it. When you start stepping into the higher dimensional consciousness and aspect of you that is in that physical form, you are detaching from these programs and paradigms that keep you held in the matrix, right? Now, of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with any of these programs and paradigms. They assist the human in many ways, right? But they're not a reality that exists when you are in a more expanded state, meaning when you are floating and kind of literally popped out of the matrix, watching it. You look down and you're like, oh yeah, there's humans that clear past lives. There's humans that have, that are in the program and paradigm of karmic contracts and clearing a past life so they don't have to do it in this life. And you're kind of watching all of that, but you're detached from it. Like, oh, wow, look at what they're doing. That's great. That's beautiful. But do they realize they don't have to? That they can actually step out and kind of be in a bigger picture and recognize that doesn't necessarily exist when you start shifting your frequency, right? When you start expanding into higher frequencies. And what happens is you start to get real conscious, like we've all been doing. We're getting really conscious on our everyday now moments, right? How am I thinking? How am I feeling? What am I believing in? How am I resonating with people? How am I responding and reacting to people? What am I clearing inside of me? Do I feel the energy of the beings around me? Like, we're getting so conscious and clear of that. And so the next step now is, can you feel yourself floating in that quantum space? You know, there's a really beautiful teacher, Phil Good, who talks about the dot, being the dot, right? And if you haven't listened to his information, I'd recommend going and listening to some of his stuff. But he talks about being the dot, and that's exactly what this is. You are literally floating in your sovereign field, right? So you're contained in your energetic field. You're contained in your sovereign resonance and energetic signature as you continue to increase in frequency. But you're no longer attached to the matrix. You're watching it, but you're no longer attached. And so you're no longer playing in the paradigms and programs that we have played in or you have played in for many years. You don't need to. It's like, oh, that's there. I'm seeing it. I'm watching it. Wow, okay. It's almost like an energetic unplug. Like you're energetically unplugging from that 3D matrix and any other matrix, right? And you're finding yourself sort of floating and just watching that matrix, watching that energetic grid and how it works and how it functions, right? This is part of the ascension process, because when we are anchored in a 5D field, we are also at the exact same time experiencing the quantum. So it's all happening at the same time as you're in a 5D form in a 5D field. It's not separate, right? Right now in a 3D matrix and in a 3D form, it's very separate, right? It's like I'm in this matrix, I'm reaching out to this other matrix, a 5D matrix. There's a quantum field around me. It's all separate, right? But when you shift into higher frequencies and you start to recognize that you're going to be eventually at some other now moment anchored into a 5D field, you will be in such a high frequency and vibration that you will all automatically be accessing the quantum. And so everything is existing in every now moment. There is nothing that you are victim to. Everything is a choice. And there is no linear time. Karma and past lives and ancestral clearings and that's all linear. That's all based on a linear time-space continuum, right? When you are shifting out of that and moving into a higher frequency, there's no such thing. It doesn't make sense. You're just energetically out of that thinking, I'm sovereign. My energetic field is completely sovereign. From this higher perspective, nothing is pulling me in any direction unless I jump in and play with it and connect to the grid and play with it, right? Which you can do, which we have been doing, right? When we tap into past lives, we are tapping into the energetic grid, the third dimensional energetic grid on the earth plane. Our physical form attaches to it, and we are connected to every timeline that we've had, every past life that we've had. But every single now moment, every past life, everything is in its own sovereign bubble. It's existing in the quantum separate. It's completely separate. This is the challenging piece for humans. Yes, you jump in, you're attached to the third dimensional grid, you start to remember your past lives, you start to feel your past lives, and then there's this belief system that we have to clear it, and that assists many, many humans. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you start to remember that you are a sovereign bubble, and you're not necessarily attached and connected to that third dimensional grid, that you have a choice to detach from the grid, to pull yourself off the grid and to look down at the grid and say, wow, look at how this all works energetically. Oh my God, there's a linear time-space continuum. And when the human jumps down into that earth and stands there, they all of a sudden can feel energetically the experiences they've had in other lives, the experiences they may be having, right? It feels like this. When you detach, all of a sudden you're floating. All of a sudden you're in a sovereign space and field. You understand that you have choice in every now moment, that you are not tied or connected to anything. And from that expanded free space, that is when you can say, look at that life I had. Holy cow. I was murdered or persecuted or, whatever you had. Oh my God, there's an experience that I could have in a future now moment if I want. Do I want that? I don't know if I want that. Do I believe I can have it? It's infinite. You're free. It's like there's no emotional attachment to any of it. It just is, right? It just is. And this is the same with any paradigm or program that's attached to the third dimensional matrix, right? When we start shifting, you guys, this is all the work that you guys have been doing, is allowing you to anchor higher frequencies. What that does is it activates the light codes, the high frequency light codes that you brought in, that are in the 12-strand DNA that's activating, right? So it's innate. This is natural. It's what you are born to do. And then you start to get this bigger picture of like, holy cow, wait a second. You know, it's these building blocks. And you start to feel yourself disconnected from the matrix, watching it like a TV show. Like, wow, I remember when I believed that. I don't believe that anymore. You start to feel completely sovereign. That nothing is doing anything to you. You're not doing anything to anyone else. You are a sovereign, energetic field of frequency floating around, interacting and engaging with all the other consciousness around you. And in every now moment, you have a choice how you respond and resonate and react, right? You have a choice what you play in. You have a choice in all of it. And that brings so much freedom. This is what we are going to be experiencing. This is what we are experiencing. This is the beginning of really experiencing and feeling our multidimensionality. This is it. We are free. We're escaping out of that matrix. And it's fascinating. And it's like, thank God, all the work that we've been doing is paying off, right? Now, you may or may not be experiencing this, right? I'm sharing my experience because if you aren't experiencing this yet, you will experience this, okay? And if you know my story and what I've been going through, you've seen all the ups and downs that I've been having, right? I find myself now in this space of, holy cow, I'm floating in the quantum space. I'm completely detached from the 3D matrix. I'm just watching it all. It's fascinating. It's all just so fascinating, right? And there's nothing spectacular about me. I don't do spectacular things like activate my pineal gland or, do all these chakra things, right? I'm just consciously, courageously moving through every now moment. And what I do know is that you are a higher dimensional consciousness. You are a higher dimensional consciousness that dropped into human form. And you brought in light codes to assist you in this awakening. You brought in light codes in every single life that you jumped into in human form. It's part of the package, just like the briefcase of the Akashic record. It's part of the package. You drop in with your consciousness these light codes that are designed to activate so that you can be that multidimensional being in a dense physical form as it shifts. And that's what's happening. It's giving you access to the multidimensional realms. It's like little doors open and all of a sudden it's like, oh, now all of a sudden this is happening. Another door opens. Oh, now all of a sudden I have these different gifts that I didn't have before. Another door opens, right? In the light codes with the DNA. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm no longer reacting the way I used to. I'm no longer playing in victimhood, right? There's all these things. All of a sudden you can see things or hear things or feel things. That's your light codes within the DNA, which are DNA is just the strands, right? The light codes are held within that DNA, right? So this is what's occurring. This is what's happening to you. This is what's happening to me. This is what's happening to us. If you're having a day today where you're watching this and you're like, yeah, well, I feel like shit today. That's okay. You won't in another now moment. And you will eventually feel this. You will feel yourself splitting out of that matrix and feeling yourself floating around. My recommendation always is get conscious, get conscious, get conscious. We are conscious ascending humans. And nobody can do this for us but us. So we have to be aware and alert and conscious of what we're feeling. You are a sovereign being in your own field, with your own signature, with your own energetic vibration, doing the best you can to continue to move into the next highest version of you, regardless of what you're experiencing in this now moment. You are always shifting to the next highest aspect of you. Your light codes are designed to turn on as you're doing all this work, okay? It's just going to naturally happen. You don't have to take 1,000 different courses to figure this out. You don't have to do anything to activate it. It activates by you staying present in every now moment and devouring your moment, devouring the emotions that are clearing, devouring the resonance that you have in every now moment, the choices that you're making, the courage it takes to choose a different reality or a different consciousness when you're engaging out in the world. Right? That's how you activate the light codes. That's how we shift. That's how we move into higher frequencies and higher dimensional states of consciousness to begin to be the multidimensional human that we have designed ourselves to be. So you're doing it, and you'll find yourself floating, sort of not energetically connected to anything. When you disconnect from the grid, it's an energetic disconnect. You feel yourself no longer being pulled in any direction energetically. And it's mind-blowing. It's like, holy cow, I have just disconnected and I'm now floating above it all. It's fascinating, you guys. I wish I could explain it better. Hopefully I did explain this in a little bit of a way that you can understand, but it's literally like you disconnect and then you're floating above, and you're not pulled in any direction. You're not feeling like you're understanding past lives, you're understanding karma, you're understanding ancestral wounds and healings and things like that. You're understanding that that is a beautiful paradigm in the time-space continuum that's linear in 3D. It doesn't exist when you start shifting into higher frequencies. It just doesn't. And you won't experience it until you're feeling that quantum shift. And then you'll look back and say, oh my God, holy cow, I'm detached from it. So just another piece to the puzzle of ascension, you guys. And the very simple kind of understanding of light codes in DNA turning on and activating, experiencing the quantum, because it's very simple, you guys. It's not complex, right? You know, I find myself today experiencing this quantum space and I'm like, wow, this is what it feels like. I'm a very normal human. I got my Starbucks coffee and my food, and, you know, I'm not this enlightened guru walking around like peace, love, happiness, right? I'm not doing that. I'm just being me. I'm being human, and I'm in this quantum space walking around feeling my sovereignty disconnected from the 3D grid. This is how it's designed to be. You don't have to be spectacular. You don't have to be enlightened. You don't have to be doing certain things, saying certain things, feeling certain things. This naturally unravels for us. It naturally unravels for us, and it will naturally unravel for you. I'm an example of where you've already been. You may already be experiencing this, or where you're going, or where you're at right now. Purpose of this video is to share a little bit about the simplicity of light codes turning on in your DNA that you brought in, reminding you of what you already know, what you did when you dropped in. This is all information you already know. And tapping into the quantum is very simple. It's just disconnected from this grid. Holy cow, look at this. Look at all these paradigms. How fun is that? Floating above it. So anyway, I wanted to just jump on and share this quick analogy, this quick description of the quantum and light codes. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you all so much. I will let you know that my community, my online subscription community, is starting on the 24th. I'm so freaking excited for this. I'll have more details in the next week or two, how you can sign up. The first live that we'll be doing will be October 8th, but you can start signing up for the community on September 24th. So I'm really excited. I cannot wait. All right. I love you guys so much. Be gentle with yourselves. Love yourself. Remember, you brought in the light codes. You pushed them into those strands, and they're designed to wake up when you're waking up. Higher light that you hold in your body by all the work you've been doing, these light codes turn on, and all of a sudden you have more freedom, more expansion, and you disconnect from that matrix, which, by the way, we already know there's nothing wrong with that matrix, right? But we're not designed to stay attached to it as we shift. I love you guys. Let me know if you have any comments or questions down below. Like the video if you like it. Send it to somebody else that may need to hear this message. Pass it on, pass it on, pass it on. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. I appreciate every single one of you. I'll see you next Tuesday for the live. My next live is on the 10th at 4 p.m. Pacific. I'll see you there. Love you. Bye.